There's a truth about betrayal that no one ever really tells you. It doesn't begin with a lie. It doesn't begin with a secret meeting or a hidden file. It begins with trust. The kind of trust so complete, so quiet, and so heavy that you eventually stop questioning the ground beneath your feet. You assume the earth is solid until the moment it swallows you whole. That was the life Thomas Shaw built. For 30 years, 30 long, rhythmic years, his hands shaped certainty out of absolute chaos. He was a man of the grain. He understood that what has a memory, and if you respect it, it stays true. He took the jagged, raw edges of oak and maple, and he smoothed them into furniture that would outlive the people who sat in them. He took the cold, blue ink of architectural blueprints and breathed heat into them, turning lines on paper into homes where children grew and secrets were kept. He turned fleeting moments into permanent memories. Every joint he carved, every dovetail he fitted, was a promise. He believed that if you built things correctly, they would never fall apart. And love was the greatest thing he ever built. He shaped it into something he believed was indestructible. Because Thomas didn't just love Ella Watson, he studied her. He understood the tilt of her head when she was dreaming. He understood the specific silence she held when she was worried. Or, at least, that is the story he told himself in the quiet hours of the morning. He believed he knew the grain of her soul as well as he knew the timber on his workbench. He thought he knew where she would bend under pressure, where she would resist the world, and exactly where she would break. But people are not wood. They don't follow the predictable patterns of nature. They don't give you a warning groan before they split down the center. And sometimes, the person you trust to hold the light is the one rewriting the blueprint in the dark, right behind your back. At the beginning, it was so simple. They were young. They were hungry. They were dreaming in a world that felt far too small for them. Ella was the visionary, the architect who looked at an empty field and saw a cathedral. Thomas was the builder, the man who made her impossible dreams stand upright. She imagined skylines, and he gave them structure. She spoke in the language of possibilities, and he answered with the language of permanence. In those early days, they shared a single studio apartment that smelled of turpentine and cheap coffee. They had $0 in the bank, but they had a 100% belief in the future. They were a team, a singular engine. Somewhere between her wild vision and his steady hands, a life was born. A home was raised. A rhythm was established. It was a marriage that felt unshakable, like an old-growth forest. But here is the thing about stability. If you stare at it for 30 years, it starts to feel like a cage. What one person calls peace, another person, in the quiet of their own mind, might start to call limitation. If this story is speaking to you, if you are finding yourself in the middle of your own transition, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel. We are building a community of people who believe in the power of the second act, and we would love to have you with us. There is always a moment, a tiny, quiet, almost invisible moment, where everything begins to shift. It isn't loud. It isn't a scream. It's subtle. It's a delayed response to a simple question. It's a distant look in the eyes while you're sitting across from each other at dinner. It's a silence that lingers just 1 second too long. And if you miss that moment, you don't realize the foundation is rotting until the roof caves in. Betrayal doesn't explode. It unfolds. It is a slow, careful process. Like a plan that has been rehearsed 1,000 times in a mirror before you ever see the performance. At first, Thomas only noticed the distance. It was like a fog rolling in off the coast. Ella was present. Her body was there, but her spirit was miles away. Her words became shorter, clipped at the edges. Her nights became longer, spent staring at a glowing screen or staying late at an office that suddenly felt like a fortress. She began talking about the Horizon Project, a massive glass and steel development that required more capital than they had ever seen. Thomas wanted to stay solid. He wanted to keep his hands in the sawdust. But Ella was tired of the smell of pine. She wanted the smell of jet fuel and high-stakes boardrooms. She wanted the horizon, and she was willing to burn the ground she stood on to reach it. The truth didn't come to Thomas Shaw all at once. It came in cold, hard pieces. It came in documents found in the back of a drawer. It came in rows of numbers that didn't add up. It came in signatures that looked like Ella's, but felt like a stranger's. Decisions had been made without him. The home he had spent 30 years paying for, the sanctuary he built with his own two hands. It had been leveraged. It had been risked. It had been used as collateral for a dream he never agreed to, for a future he was never even invited to see. And it was visceral. It wasn't just a mental shock. Thomas felt it in his body, a coldness that started in the center of his chest and moved like ice water to his fingertips. His hands, the hands that could steady a mountain, began to shake. Because betrayal is never just about the money. It's about replacement. It's about the soul-crushing realization that someone else has taken your place in a story you thought belonged to you. When Thomas finally confronted her in that quiet, cold kitchen, he wasn't angry. Not at first. He was just confused. Confusion always comes before the fire. Your mind tries to build a bridge back to the person you thought they were, even as your heart is looking at the stranger standing in front of you. He asked her, "I built this life for us, and you sold it like it meant nothing. What?" But Ella Watson didn't flinch. By the time a betrayal is revealed, the betrayer has already spent months justifying it to themselves. They've already made peace with the wreckage. She looked him in the eye and said, "I didn't want to hurt you, Thomas. I just didn't want to be small anymore. I wanted more. More. It is such a simple word. For letters. But it is a dangerous word. More has destroyed more lives, more homes, and more souls than less ever could." And just like that, 30 years of loyalty, 30 years of showing up, was reduced to a limitation. That is what betrayal does to your past. It rewrites your history. It takes every warm memory, every Christmas, every shared laugh, and it puts a giant, crooked question mark at the end of it. Was it ever real? Did any of it actually matter? Or was he just the convenience? A stepping stone? That is the moment the world collapses. Not when you find the lie, but when you realize the truth you believed in no longer exists. There is a place that exists after the collapse, a place no one prepares you for. It is the Valley of Ash. It isn't a place of anger. That comes later. It is a place of absolute emptiness. A quiet, heavy, unmoving void. It is the feeling of being stripped naked in the middle of a winter storm. Thomas Shaw didn't just lose his marriage. He lost his name. He lost his identity. Because when your entire life is built around being a provider, a builder, a husband, and that foundation is yanked away, you are left asking the most terrifying question a human can ask. Who am I? When there is nothing left to build? The house was gone. The business followed shortly after. The routines, the sound of the kettle in the morning, the laughter in the hallway, the certainty of the future, all of it was gone. All that remained was that deafening, suffocating silence. Days blurred into nights. The nights stretched into something heavier, something darker. For 6 months, he lived in a room that smelled of nothing. No cedar, no oil, just cold air. And that is when the bitterness began to take root. Pain is an energy, and it demands a response. It wants to move. And the easiest way for pain to move is through anger. The easiest response is revenge. It's the dark fantasy of balance. It's the desire to make the other person feel exactly the same weight that is crushing you. For a long time, that fantasy was the only thing that kept Thomas Shaw alive. The thought of justice. The thought of watching Ella fall the same way he had fallen. And then, the call came. It wasn't a dramatic movie moment. It was a cold, factual report. Ella's bigger world had crumbled. The project had collapsed under the weight of its own greed. Her partner had vanished with what was left of the funds. The debts were astronomical. Suddenly, the woman who chose more had absolutely nothing. The power had shifted. For the first time in this long, agonizing second act, Thomas Shaw held the outcome in his calloused hands. He had the evidence. He had the leverage. He had the control. He could end her. He could ensure she never worked again. He could watch the legal system dismantle what was left of her life. And no one would blame him. Not a single soul. Because revenge feels like holy justice when you've been wronged that deeply. But here is the truth that stays hidden in the shadows. Revenge doesn't heal the wound. It just keeps the wound open. It ties you, permanently, to the person who broke you. The longer you hold on to the neck of your enemy, the longer they own a piece of your soul. So Thomas had to ask a different question. Not, what does she deserve? But, who do I want to be when I wake up tomorrow? Redemption is not a feeling. It's not a warm glow or a sudden moment of peace. Redemption is a cold, hard, expensive decision. It is an uncomfortable choice. Because redemption demands that you give up the one thing you feel you earned, your right to stay angry. Thomas didn't choose Ella that day. He didn't choose to fix the marriage. He didn't choose to forget the past. He chose himself. He realized that choosing yourself sometimes means letting go of the version of you that wants to see the world burn. Piece by piece, in a small, cramped workshop that smelled of cedar and starting over, he began to rebuild. Not the life he once had, but the man he was always meant to be. He moved slower now. He was wiser. He was more intentional with every cut of the saw. He listened to the wood again. But this time, he listened to the silence between the cuts. And when the moment of truth arrived, he didn't use his power to destroy her. He did something much, much harder. He helped her. He didn't do it out of a lingering love. He didn't do it out of a sense of duty. He did it out of principle, because he understood the secret of the second act. Forgiveness is not a gift you give to the person who hurt you. It is a gift you give to yourself so you don't have to carry their ghost around for the rest of your life. When they finally met one last time, the air was clear. There were no illusions left between them. No romance. No nostalgia. Just the raw, bare truth. Ella looked at him, broken, tired, and humbled, and she asked, "Why? Why would you help me after everything I took from you?" It's the question betrayal always asks at the end of the road. Why choose kindness when cruelty is so much easier? Thomas Shaw looked at the woman he had once built a world for. And he said, "I didn't do it for you, Ella. I did it for me. Because I refuse to become someone I don't recognize just to get even with you." In that moment, the air shifted. Not the relationship, that was over, but the man. Thomas was free. Because forgiveness doesn't restore what was lost. It simply releases you from the debt. Most people think life is defined by what happens to you, by the tragedies, by the betrayals, by the wins and the losses. But they're wrong. Life is defined by what you choose after the world falls apart. Thomas Shaw lost everything he thought made him a man. And in that loss, he found his soul. He found a peace that didn't depend on a house or a blueprint. He found freedom. Ella Watson lost her pride. She lost her illusion of control. And in that wreckage, she finally found the truth. Maybe that is what the second act really is. It's not a sequel. It's not a continuation of the same old story. It is a total transformation. It is the moment the lead becomes gold. So, if you are standing in the ruins of your own life right now, if you are staring at something broken that you didn't choose and you didn't deserve, remember Thomas Shaw. Remember that you still get to decide what happens next. You still get to choose who you become in the silence. Redemption is expensive. It will cost you your anger. It will cost you your pride. It will cost you your absolute need to be right. But what it gives you in return is the only thing that actually matters. It gives you you. So keep walking. Through the fire. Through the pain. Through the uncertainty. Because the second act is where the real story begins. And sometimes, if you're brave enough to stay quiet, it's where you finally become the person you were meant to be all along. Thank you for listening to this journey. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with someone who might be in their own second act. We will see you in the next story.